I want to play a little bit of music while we wait for someone to get in here. Let's see here. Oh, I got that I can upload. Andrew, this was back when we were. Never mind. Look at that. I'll do my. This one. While we wait for someone to get in here.
They walk in with their stories loud.
Hey, Ghost.
Trying to pull me through their crowd. But I build walls they can't unbind. My strength is sharp, it's well defined. Voices rising like a storm. But I've been here, I've been reborn. I stand my ground, I hold my line. Their shadows fade while I still shine.
I love it.
They can't break me, they can't drown. I stand my ground. I stand my ground.
Hello to the three that are watching. I need to go through my block list, guys. And I guarantee you there's some guys blocked.
But I've got scars that spell my name. Each one a torch, each one a flame. Let them roar, let them scream. I've got fire, I've got dreams.
Welcome in. Welcome in. Thank you. I don't find myself that pretty, but thank you. I do accept the compliment. Will it bother anyone if I know? I'm not even going to worry about the block list right now. Mark can come in underneath a different name if he wants to come in. So me and Ed have been working on cases together, and let me go pull up the last case we did, and then we'll go over some of the other cases we have talked about. I guess I could go to my live. That would actually give me some views, even though I've already looked at it. View channel. Okay. Lives. This should be me and Ed. This will be me and Ed. Okay. I'll start out with this, I guess. Ugh. I hate hearing my own voice. But I think it's probably the best way of doing it. Hey, and I can't get a copyright strike for doing my own stuff, right? Hello, 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 y'all. Just a moment. Y'all. Difficulties. Sorry. I do apologize. Joy. Okay, well, I was going to turn on my camera today. Hello, hello, welcome in. Am I connected now? No, I don't know. We'll go with this. No, am I connected? Now are you going to work? No. Where? No. Why? Okay, well, guess I won't have my camera on today, so it doesn't really matter if I'm big or small. How do I normally do it? I think I can do. I want that big. There we go. Okay. Sorry about the technical difficulties, y'all. I do apologize. Like I said, me and Ed did a lot. Hello, hello. Can you guys? Okay, who's gonna hear me? What is going on here? All right. Hey, Ed.
What's going on?
Not a lot. What are you up to?
Well, I was out, and then I got a message saying, "Hey, we're doing a show tonight." I was like, "Well, I can't do that show right in the middle of this coffee shop, so I gotta go home."
So you were at a coffee shop, huh?
I was hanging out. I was just getting comfortable too, D.
You're the one. Sorry, I forget. I'm on. Yesterday, we can do it tomorrow. I was like, okay.
I know, I did. I know, I'm here. I'm prepared. I wouldn't show up if I wasn't prepared. It's either me show up prepared or me not show up at all.
Well, what was your podcast over? I haven't listened to it yet today. I usually listen to it.
I had a friend of the podcast, Heather Grotman, on, and we discussed the 1984 disappearance of Rex Douglas, who it is now believed was not his real name. He had lied about his background, etc. And so we talked about him.
And if you guys are not subbed up to Mr. Edward Denzel, please go sub up to him. Give him a follow. He does true crime, just like I do.
Still missing 42 years later.
Oh.
So this is, I think, the first disappearance that the podcast has covered where after the fact, it was like, oh, that person might not have been who he said he was.
Dang.
We're always breaking new ground, D. You know, always looking for new stuff.
This is true.
What about you? What's been up with you? What's going on?
Haven't been doing many lives. I normally do 2 a week, but this month has been just horrendous already. So
why is that? What's going on here?
The weather, the tornadoes, all that stuff. So it's kind of hard to work around. You know what I mean? Work around that.
I see. So you had more tornado warnings this past week?
Yes.
Really?
Matter of fact, we are underneath a severe thunderstorm watch right now.
Huh. Well, if you go flying away, D, you know.
Take the laptop with me.
I'll feel really bad, D.
No, you won't. You'll be like, see, she should have just left me alone at the coffee shop.
You know what else I said? I told her to move to Florida.
Move to Florida. Where hurricanes happen.
We have tornadoes here, but nothing like over there, you know. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, I guess you haven't got hit by any. So.
No. None have been close, but it's like last week. Was it last weekend? They had I think 3 go over the top of the EMT office in Sulphur. So.
Huh.
They've had sirens.
Wow. Well, the only experience I have in that area, of course, is with hurricanes. And of course, hurricanes can do a lot of damage. They're dangerous. They kill people and everything. But I would also say, meteorologists tend to get a little crazy with all this stuff and, scaring people and everything. And, when I think about tornadoes, I wonder if it could be the same thing. They're coming. It's good. It's going to be an F5 and and they get it. And then you don't even get hit at all.
Well, hello, Can. How are you, love? I wish it was like that here, considering was it last weekend after the was it last week after the show? It was last week after the show. Our sirens started going off. So I'm taking off out the door. We get in the car. We get halfway down the block, and they shut them off.
Huh.
And I was just cussing them. I was just like, "Grr."
I was like, I told you, swearing at them. You were cussing them.
Yeah, I was so just, grr. Couldn't even let me get to a cellar before you decide that we're out of damage. Yeah, we're good.
I was just getting comfortable in this lawn chair in this cellar, and they shut it off.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
How does your son? Does he get a kick out of it or what?
He is scared of them.
Oh, is he?
He will not admit it, but he is. Last year when we had him go off and we had to walk up to the cellar, the whole time he was screaming at the top of his lungs we were going to die.
Oh, no.
Yes. So I just try to keep it as calm as possible. Noise canceling headsets, whatever I have to do to keep him from panicking.
Okay. All right. Huh.
So.
Well, at least what was this? Hold on a second. Let's see.
She was a banker, wasn't she, or a teller?
So do we have to start thinking like some guy who was a customer at the bank? Who's going in there, gets infatuated with Mary, stalks her, does something to her. Of course, with these, these credit cards, I don't know how to read into that. And then Diane comes in, takes her place, and then he becomes infatuated with Diane too. Yeah, this is one of those. I don't know how you're ever going to solve this. I don't know how anybody in the state of Georgia is ever going to solve this. No idea.
I don't know.
Well, the thing is, though, her husband, I don't know if her husband, she was only 25 when this happened. If he was like the same age, my dad's 89. So this guy maybe is in his late 80s. Is he still alive now? What? I don't know. And then with Diane Shields, just if you want to go over her, she was at work. And what did it say? I actually pulled up. Let me read an article about that, D. I actually pulled up on, because it's not on the Charlie Project, because it's not a disappearance. Hold on. No. All right, hold on a second. Yeah, this is one of those I don't know how you're ever going to solve this. I don't know how anybody in the state of Georgia is ever going to solve this. No idea.
I don't know.
Well, the thing is, though, her husband, I don't know if her husband, she was only 25 when this happened. If he was like the same age, my dad's 89. So this guy maybe is in his late 80s. Is he still alive now?
Well,
I don't know. And then with Diane Shields, just if you want to go over her, she was at work. And what did it say? I actually pulled up. Let me read an article about that, D. I actually pulled up on because it's not on the Charlie Project, because it's not a disappearance. Hold on. No. All right, hold on a second. Is this what I'm looking for? Wasn't the article that I looked at before. Ms. Shields' murder isn't close to a solution, and this was written in June 7th, 1967. At 5:05 p.m. on May 19th, an attractive young secretary got into her car in a parking lot. A few hours later, the body of Diane Marie Shields was found stuffed in the trunk of her automobile in East Point in one of the most brutal and baffling murder mysteries ever discovered in the metro area. After 3 weeks of intensive investigation, East Point and Atlanta police admit they still have not come up with a motive for the bizarre was her blood. Some police officers, and then I was the one, I didn't know that, and I said, I think he'd make a pretty good guess. So I, reintroduced them to each other, and they did the interview. And of course, he's in no body case. Of course,
there's your train. There's your train.
Do I know Oklahoma or what? And I got they mentioned me a few times in there. So I really appreciate it. I thanked Julia for that.
Well,
yeah. So I thanked her. I emailed her, and when I saw that their episodes come out every Wednesday, and so when I saw that was the one on Wednesday morning, I emailed her. I was like, "Oh, I'm so excited."
Well, how was Trivia Wednesday?
Well, we came in second.
Is better than what it's been, I guess.
Yeah, it's the first time we've gotten the final question correct. And so we came in second, move up the rankings quite a bit. So we're kind of back in. We have to try to finish in the top 5. And so I think we're like 7th or 8th right now. But moved up, passed up quite a few teams. It was good. I didn't come away from Wednesday night being all ticked off at myself like I did last week.
Yeah, you seemed very, very down. And then you said what it was Monday, and I was like, "Aw." He was upset.
I only have fun if I win, D.
Is that why we quit trivia over here?
No, not really. We just, transformed a little bit. It's your show.
Well, I think it kind of, the point that I was making with the trivia was these cases that you talk about, I talk about, maybe make it a little bit more easier to swallow, but I don't think anyone caught on to the thought there.
That's all right. We've been doing this, talking about, women like Nancy Guthrie who have been abducted. I think this has been good.
Yeah, I think it has went pretty well. I do.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about Mary Shotwell Little?
Yes, I have her photo up.
See that? That's her right there, huh?
Yeah,
She was good looking.
she was a pretty young lady.
Huh. Yeah. Well, you read a little bit about it. I took some notes. How do you want to do this?
Well, if you want to read a little, or if you want me to read a little bit about what happened and how she went missing, it's up to you.
All right. Let me pull this
Um,
in. Mary Shotwell Little. I will just read a little bit of it. And this is a disappearance I've heard of before. In fact, I am
Okay.
sure that I have been. I'm sure I've been to this Charlie Project page more than once before. Why? Maybe just looking around. I really can't say. But Mary on October 14th, she had purchased groceries after work. Then met a coworker for dinner at the Piccadilly Cafeteria in Atlanta, Georgia, in the Lenox Square Shopping Center, Buckhead neighborhood of Atlanta. Mary was reportedly in good spirits at the time and spoke happily about her married life. She walked back to her car after dinner. This coworker was a female. Approximately 8 p.m. She was never heard from again. She didn't show up for work the next day, and they started. Her husband was out of town for business, and her car was eventually found. Was found in that same lot, in where she had dinner the evening before with the coworker. Although there are reports that it looked like it had been moved. There's some discrepancy on whether, they had like a security guard in this parking lot or at the shopping mall, whatever it was. Discrepancy. Did they see it? Was it there all night? Wasn't it there? Did it get moved? Was it brought back? I would say that we can't be sure about that. I understand that like Unsolved Mysteries and other places might be a little more firm one way or the other. I would say that that's unclear. There was a coating of red dust on the car's exterior as if it had been driven on a dirt road. The groceries were still inside. And package of Kent cigarettes were in there. There was also a slip, panties, girdle, bra, and single stocking in the back seat. Most of the items had been kneaded, and the stockings had been cut with a knife. Mary's outer clothes, purse, coat, jewelry, and car keys are still missing, and they have never been found. Blood was speckled on the undergarments, but blood was found on the side door of the car, but certainly not enough to ever think that enough to kill her. It was her blood. Some police officers were of the opinion that the scene had been staged due to the great smearing of the small quantity of blood. There was an unidentified fingerprint of blood on the steering wheel. Her credit card ended up being used twice in North Carolina. So this is Georgia in North Carolina the next day, October 15th. First time was as an SO station. The second time was at another SO. Stations attended both stations recalled seeing a woman who appeared to have a minor injury to her head and was bloodstained to her head and legs. I don't know whether I'm supposed to believe that or not. Both workers told authorities that the woman was traveling with one or two unshaven middle-aged men who seemed to be commanding her. The woman appeared to be trying to hide her face from the attendants, and she did not ask anyone for help. The credit card had been used in the early morning hours of October 15th, so not long after she left her coworker. Authorities speculate that perhaps whoever had Mary was trying to lead the investigators away from Atlanta. The signatures on the credit card slip said Mrs. Roy H. Little Jr. and appeared to be her handwriting. Using Roy's mileage log and Mary's odometer, investigators estimated that the car had been driven only 41 miles, had been driven 41 miles that could not be accounted for, which you're not going to get from Atlanta to Charlotte where these things, so she had to have been in a different car. So, there was a ransom demand made for Mary after the news. An anonymous caller told Roy to go to the overpass. An FBI agent went to the location and found a blank piece of paper stuck to the sign. The caller did not contact the Little family again and has never been identified. The ransom is suspected to be a hoax. They looked at her husband, but he seemed to have a pretty good alibi, being that he was out of town. But Mary's friends didn't really seem to care for him. He refused to take a lie detector test. He had nothing to gain from her death. There was no trouble in the marriage. He'd never been charged with any wrongdoing in her disappearance. And there was a rumor about a sex scandal at where she worked. There was nothing that was ever proven there. Mary said she had been receiving unsettling phone calls, and allegedly there was somebody overheard her talking to somebody about, I can't go over there. Maybe she had a secret admirer. So essentially, she goes to work, has lunch, dinner, or whatever with a coworker, a female coworker, and she had these groceries. She's never seen. She goes out to her car, never to be seen again. No actually violence, a sign of violence on the car, blood, speckles here and there, but certainly not enough to kill her. So what do you think, D?
Well, I know that it was also stated that I read on the site that I've got pulled up that she had a friend that was murdered as well, that was shoved in the trunk of her car.
That was 2 years later.
Yeah.
It was not a friend. These women did not know each other.
Oh, I thought they were coworkers and friends from what I read.
No, it says, I read an article. I went back and looked at newspapers.com from 1967. You're talking about Diane Shields. Diane Shields and Mary Shotwell just happened to have the same roommate.
Oh.
They were not roommates. They happened to have the same roommate. And so Mary was roommate with this person. Mary got married. Diane ended up living with this person. When Mary went missing, Diane found out about the job opening and she took the job, and then she was murdered 2 years later. And her body was found in the trunk of her car. She had been strangled to death, like with a piece of wire or something. But I don't know if they technically knew each other. They had a mutual roommate friend. So there's a train again.
Yep.
Is that a different train, D?
Huh?
Is that a different train?
Yes. I believe.
They hate. They really do hate us.
Yeah. I just count the days that I finally get away from that sound. And then I'm going to be saddened because I won't hear it.
Uh-huh. Sound of commerce in the United States.
With this case, it's one of those that makes you sit there and go, it's very different. Due to the fact she was obviously in her vehicle whenever she was, or going through her vehicle whenever it happened. And the person she was having dinner with, did they see anything out of the ordinary would be a question I would have.
October 14th, 1965, Atlanta, Georgia. After having dinner with a friend, 25-year-old bank secretary Mary Shotwell Little, vanishes without explanation. The following day, her abandoned vehicle is discovered with traces of blood and Mary's undergarments inside. The case would contain many bizarre developments, including alleged sightings of Mary using her gasoline card in North Carolina alongside unidentified male companions, and the subsequent unsolved murder of the woman who took over Mary's job at the bank. However, Mary Shotwell Little is never found. After that, the trail went cold.
Cold. If you're not already following them, go follow them, give them a sub up. They do podcasts as well. I know they're on Spotify.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of The Trail Went Cold. I'm your host Robin Warder, and today I will be covering a very strange missing persons case, the 1965 disappearance of Mary Shotwell Little. It's a common practice to refer to the truly bizarre and convoluted unsolved mysteries as rabbit holes, but this case, it's not so much a rabbit hole as it is a rabbit bottomless pit. When selecting stories for this podcast, I often have a tendency to focus on mysteries which have a lot of inexplicable elements, but this one ranks right up there as one of the weirdest I've ever come across. We have a young newlywed woman who goes missing, and while there's a lot of compelling evidence to suggest foul play, there's other evidence which convinced some of the original investigators that Mary might have staged her own disappearance. This is one of those mysteries where there are numerous possible explanations about what happened, but none of them make complete sense. This episode also contains a compelling mystery within a mystery involving a woman named Diane Shields, who took over Mary's job after she vanished, but was murdered herself less than 2 years later. So I'm going to examine whether these two cold cases might be connected. But before we get started, just a brief reminder that The Trail Went Cold is a weekly podcast which alternates between our regular full-length episodes like this one and shorter mini-sodes. We deliver either a new episode or a new mini-sode every Wednesday. We're currently available for download on several platforms, including iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play Music. So if you like this podcast, be sure to subscribe to it and leave us a rating or review on any of those sites, because that will help us garner more exposure. The Trail Went Cold also has its own PayPal account and a donate button on our website. If there's anyone out there who wants to make a donation, we would greatly appreciate it, and we'll be sure to give you a shout out on a future episode. So with all that out of the way, let us now explore the convoluted, unsolved disappearance of Mary Shotwell Little. Our story begins in Atlanta, Georgia in 1965. Our central figure is 25-year-old Mary Shotwell Little, a newlywed who has been married to her husband Roy Little for 6 weeks. Mary works as a secretary in the personnel department of the Citizens and Southern Bank, while Roy is a bank examiner currently training to become an auditor with the state banking department. On October 14th, Roy has traveled to the town of LaGrange to complete his training, so after finishing her shift at work, Mary makes arrangements to meet a female coworker named Isla Stack for dinner at the Piccadilly Cafeteria in the Lenox Square Shopping Center. After buying 4 bags of groceries at a nearby store and placing them inside her vehicle, a gray 1965 Mercury Comet, Mary arrives at the cafeteria for dinner. According to Isla, Mary appeared to be in good spirits and said that when Roy returned home the following evening, they were planning to hold a party for their friends at their apartment. At around 8 p.m., Mary said goodbye to Isla and walked in the direction of her Mercury Comet, which was parked in a nearby lot. But what actually happened to Mary after that has been analyzed and debated for the past 50 years. The following morning, Mary did not show up for work at the bank or call in, which was very uncharacteristic of her. When Mary's co-workers attempted to phone her, she could not be reached, and Mary's landlady informed them that she had not even retrieved her newspaper that morning. Isla Stack told Mary's boss, Gene Rackley, about their dinner the previous night, and that she last saw Mary heading in the direction of her Mercury comet. So Rackley phoned the Lenox Square shopping center and asked security to check if Mary's vehicle was still parked in the lot, but they said they could not find it. Well, at around noon, Rackley decided to travel to Lenox Square himself, and after searching the lot for a couple minutes, he finally did come across Mary's gray Mercury comet and notified the police. The vehicle's engine was cold, and there was a lot of disturbing evidence inside. A pair of women's underwear, a slip, and a girdle were neatly folded and placed on the console between the front seats. A bra was also neatly folded and lying on the floorboard alongside a stocking which had been cut by a knife. But most disturbingly, there were speckles of blood on the undergarments and small traces of blood throughout various sections of the vehicle, including the steering wheel, the front seats, the driver's side door, and the inside window of the passenger side. There were also grass clippings stuck to the blood on the front seats and an unidentified fingerprint in the blood on the steering wheel. While the fingerprint did not match Mary, testing would show that the blood in the car was likely hers. However, there wasn't nearly enough blood to suggest she had suffered a fatal injury. If that wasn't enough, the 4 bags of groceries Mary had purchased prior to her dinner with Isla Stack were still in the vehicle, along with some Coke bottles and a pair of Kent cigarettes, which was known to be Mary's brand. There was also a coating of red dust on the Comet's exterior to suggest it had been recently driven on a dirt road. However, Mary's car keys, along with her purse and the rest of her clothing, were nowhere to be found. Well, Mary was officially reported missing, and the case would take a number of strange turns. Investigators would eventually discover that Mary's gasoline card was used in North Carolina on 2 separate occasions on the very same day her vehicle was discovered. The first usage of the card took place at an all-night Esso station in the very early morning hours of October 15th, sometime between midnight and 2:30 a.m. This occurred in Charlotte, which also happened to be Mary's original hometown and where her parents still lived. The second usage of the card took place at another Esso station in Raleigh around 12 hours later. What was especially unnerving and lent credibility to these sightings is that the attendants at both of these stations told strikingly similar stories. In Charlotte, the woman matching Mary's description was accompanied by an unshaven, middle-aged man. She was lying in the front seat with a newspaper over her head, which appeared to be treating a head injury. The only time she stirred is when the man used her gasoline card and gave her the credit slip for her to sign. Now, the attendant in Raleigh claimed that this woman was accompanied by 2 unshaven middle-aged men. Once again, she seemed to be treating a cut on her head, and this time, there were also traces of blood on her leg. And once again, her gasoline card was used by the men, and the credit slip was given to her to sign. Both attendants reported that the woman appeared to be hiding her face, made no attempt to signal for help, and that her male companion, or companions, seemed to be very controlling of her.
I'm glad I looked over and seen. I was trying to figure out what cases me and Ed have went over the past couple of weeks, so that way I could go over them again. With listening to other people's thoughts and opinions. But thank you for stopping by, love. Makes me smile. Oh. I was going to turn on my camera. My camera won't work. So, go look in private chat. I got to put on makeup today. I'm so proud of myself. Motivation.
Most interestingly, she signed both the credit slips with the name Mrs. Roy H. Little, Jr. Well, no one could...
Yes, ma'am, I am. Sometimes in life, I know you've been attacked. I've been attacked here as of late as well. You just gotta roll with those punches and realize that that's them, not you. And if they're attacking me, they're leaving my friends alone.
say with absolute certainty that the signature was in Mary's handwriting. The consensus seemed to be that it looked like hers. Frustratingly, neither attendant was able to provide a detailed description of the car these men drove. Now here's an important detail.
Just a second, let me see something really quick. It says the camera's in use, so I have both cameras open. Can I see myself yet? No, I'm still black. Okay. Why is my camera not working?
This
That's why I don't have my camera on. For some reason, it doesn't want to work. Disconnected, connected, disconnected, connected. So I don't know what's going on with my laptop. I'm gonna have to, I guess. Ugh, it's only a year old. It shouldn't have to be cleaned out, but I guess at some point I'm gonna have to clean it completely out. So
on.
hello, 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 hello. Can you guys hear me? Just a second. Do I need to reset possibility? Oh, let's hope it works. Hey, there we go. Hi, y'all. Hey, Mama. I didn't see you come in on me. You snuck in. Yeah, do you guys like my house back there? Isn't it so pretty? Yes, I am a smoker. I hope it don't offend anybody. If it does, I can put down and put it out or turn off my camera. So back to me sharing what I was sharing. You guys got to remind me though to take a break because I'll forget. Oh, Mom, I forgot. Shit. Okay, I gotta move these two around. Because I'm not as pretty as Mary Stonewell Doolittle. Come on, work. Now, what do I need to do? Do I need to do anything over here? Like her picker, though. I don't want to upgrade. I mean, I can maximize her. What can I do to me make me smaller? Nope. I should have just left everything alone. That's what I should have done. Shouldn't have been messing with it. So, anything new with anyone? Hey, Can, how are you, sweetheart? Swear I'm gonna get me fake lashes and these mosquitoes. Oh, TT, what is the plant you use to keep the mosquitoes away? Because I gotta do something. I am not getting eaten alive this year. See, I've already been nailed. And I'm kind of allergic to them. I love you, sweetheart. My sister, my sister. That looks really good. Me smacking myself upside the head. I hope whoever grabbed that as a screen grab, I hope you enjoy it. That's what I hope for you. Guess I'm just going to have to leave it like it is.
Detail about this case where there's some contradictory information. If you look at the summary of this case on the Charlie Project, it says that when Mary's vehicle was found in the Lenox Square parking lot, it had a North Carolina license plate attached to it, which was later discovered to have been stolen from a vehicle in Charlotte. However, some of the newspaper articles I've come across state that the gas station attendants in North Carolina took down the license number of the car they saw, and that this turned out to be the stolen license plate. So I'm not entirely sure which account is accurate here, but the basic gist of everything is that someone stole a license plate off a vehicle in Charlotte and attempted to use it to cover their tracks. So the most bizarre thing about these sightings at the separate gas stations is that they took place 12 hours apart, but Charlotte and Raleigh are only about a 2.5 hour drive from one another. And while I can't be certain how much gas was purchased in Raleigh, a 2.5 hour drive from Charlotte would not burn through your entire tank. So the implication seems to be that Mary and her male companions may have driven to another unknown location during that 12-hour window. But there's also a question of where and how far the Mercury comet traveled before it was discovered in the parking lot.
Ah, dang it. I moved. See? There is something wrong with this thing. I don't know what it is. Oh well. I'd rather...
Mary and Roy both drove the vehicle, and Roy kept detailed mileage logs for it. After checking these logs against the reading on the vehicle's odometer, investigators estimated that there were 41 miles which could not be accounted for. So if the comet did leave the Lenox Square parking lot after Mary finished having dinner, it wouldn't have been driven a great distance, and certainly not as far as Charlotte, North Carolina, which is nearly 250 miles away from Atlanta. Now, mall security claimed that the comet wasn't in the parking lot when Gene Rackley asked them to look for it the following morning. You could easily assume that they simply missed it, but the problem was that no one remembered seeing it in the parking lot overnight or the early morning. In fact, a patrol cop drove through the lot at 6 a.m., and he claimed he did not see the comet parked there. Nothing about the timeline of events seemed to add up at all, so what exactly was going on here? It's worth noting that a few days after Mary's disappearance, another woman came forward to police and reported that she had been accosted by a thin man with a brown crew cut in the Lenox Square parking lot on the evening of October 14th. The woman thought she was being followed, so she climbed into her car and locked the door, when this man suddenly appeared to knock on the window and tell her that the back tire was low. She ignored him and instantly drove off, and when she stopped at a gas station to check her tires, she discovered they were completely fine. This incident apparently took place only minutes before Mary was last seen walking towards her car. It's quite a compelling coincidence, but no one ever identified this man, and there was at least one witness who recalled seeing Mary drive the Comet out of the lot that night, lending credence to the idea that she was abducted elsewhere. So investigators explored other possible scenarios, starting with Mary's husband, Roy Little. On the surface, Roy might have seemed like a solid suspect, since he was not exactly the most likable guy in the world, and apparently did not show an overwhelming amount of concern about his wife's disappearance. He refused to take a lie detector test on 2 separate occasions, and when he was shown the Comet, he didn't seem too fazed by all the blood inside, and was much more concerned about when the police would return it because he needed the vehicle for driving. Apparently, some of Mary's friends disliked Roy so much that they refused to attend their wedding. All that being said, Mary had always given off the impression she was happy with her marriage, and while Roy stood to collect a modest insurance settlement if Mary died, he didn't really have much of a motive. But most importantly, Roy was out of town in LaGrange, which was over an hour away from Atlanta, so he had a rock-solid alibi. So Roy was ruled out as a suspect, but shortly thereafter, he received an anonymous phone call from an unknown male demanding a $20,000 ransom for Mary's return. The caller told Roy to go to an overpass in the Pisgah National Forest in North Carolina, where he said further instructions would be posted on a sign. Well, since Mary had apparently been kidnapped across state lines, this was now a federal offense, so the FBI got involved, and one of their agents went to the overpass in Roy's place. He did find the sign in question, but it turned out that a blank piece of paper was attached there. Anyway, the caller never contacted Roy again, but authorities leaned towards the whole thing being a hoax, as the call did take place shortly after Roy and Mary's mother had both made a televised plea for her safe return. Anyway, now that the FBI was involved in the case, they started investigating Mary's background and learned a lot of potentially unsettling things. According to some of Mary's friends, in the weeks leading up to her disappearance, she had been receiving a series of phone calls at her workplace and seemed visibly shaken by them. On one occasion, Mary was overheard telling the caller, "I'm a married woman now," but curiously, she followed this up with the sentence, "You can come over to my house anytime you like, but I can't come over there." In addition, Mary also received a dozen roses at her apartment from an anonymous secret admirer, and she never told her husband about it. The roses were purchased from a florist close to where Mary lived, but
Okay. I just know I've got to do something because they're out of control. And like I said, I'm halfway allergic to them. I mean, my whole arm is red from where it bit me. I mean, I also know that burning incense will help too, and I've done that. But with my asthma, yeah, I know I'm a smoker. Let's not talk about that. But with my asthma, I tend to have asthma attacks whenever I burn incense. Don't know why. But for some reason, I'm allergic to them. See, I want to ask him if he'll get me some of those big flower pots so that way I can do like probably marigolds and lavender in them, and then in another flower pot do me a herb garden anyway. So I mean, mint, rosemary, and basil all go in a herb garden. So instead of on opposite sides of the porch, back here, my back deck. And Mom, I wasn't showing them where you live. I was just showing them that I'm a real human. And that I might be prettier than my photo. You know. But then I go slap myself upside my head. I want to mute for a minute.
investigators were unable to find out who sent them. However, while Mary's friends knew about the phone calls and the flowers, she never openly discussed these things with them, so they had no information to offer. All that being said, Mary did tell her friends that she was fearful of driving alone or being home alone when Roy was out of town, and she seemed to imply she had something important she really wanted to tell them. But she never elaborated on any of this. If that wasn't enough, investigators...
I have not. But that might be an idea. Because all I'd have to do is use like an old can to put it in. But I'm so allergic to them. But what really sucks is I'm also allergic to any pesticides. I have tried the off. Now something that I would love to have the money to go buy is the Avon oils, because the original scent will keep them away. They also keep the little aphids away, the little bitty things that you can't really see, but you know you've been bit by it because it itches. I'll have Michael do it for me. I'll have Death do it for me, because at least Death, he's a fireman. He knows what he's doing. What I like are the tiki torches, but the fluid for those are almost as expensive as buying the whole. Well, you still have to buy the fluid for it. So but the fluid for that stuff is so expensive. Ed has a little thing that he puts on his deck in the condo that keeps mosquitoes away. And it works pretty well. It just, for me, I have to find stuff that isn't something you would normally use because of the allergies I have, which bites.
Also learned from Mary's boss, Gene Rackley,
I'm mute. So that comes to better.
the bank had hired a former FBI agent to investigate possible issues with lesbian sexual harassment and possible prostitution taking place on the bank's property. Even though this apparently caused a lot of tension at the bank, Rackley insisted this was nothing more than a minor scandal involving low-level workers and that Mary never knew about it. However, that contradicted statements from Mary's mother and one of her friends that Mary had told them about this investigation. And there was also a bizarre incident involving a former roommate of Mary's. Shortly after she was questioned by police, the woman's husband received an anonymous phone call from a man who stated, "Your wife is next," before he hung up. The next major development occurred in 1966, when the FBI interviewed an inmate at Georgia State Prison who was serving a life sentence for murder. He claimed that two men told him they'd been paid $5,000 each to kidnap a woman named Mary, and then showed him Mary Shotwell Little's credit card as proof. They took him to a house in Mount Holly, North Carolina, where Mary was being held captive, and she was subsequently murdered, though the inmate claimed he had no direct participation in the crime. He also claimed to have no idea who hired these two men, only that Mary had apparently found out something they did not want her talking about. Well, no evidence was ever found to corroborate this guy's story, and it was pretty much rejected by investigators at the time, but we'll get back to it later. However, there's one more creepy postscript to this story. Shortly after Mary's disappearance, Diane Shields, a 22-year-old employee at the Citizens and Southern Bank, was transferred to Mary's department to take over her position, and she even got to work at Mary's desk. Diane also befriended many of Mary's colleagues, and even lived with one of Mary's former roommates for a time. Well, by 1967, Diane had left her job at the bank, and was now working at a place called Georgia Associated Industries. At 5 p.m. on May 19th, she was last seen leaving her work in her Chevrolet Impala, but at 2:30 a.m. the following morning, the vehicle was found abandoned in one of Atlanta's business districts, with Diane's body in the trunk. She had been suffocated when a scarf and a piece of paper from a phone book were shoved down her throat, and she'd also received a sharp blow to the back of her head. Diane was not sexually assaulted, and nothing was stolen from her, not even her diamond engagement ring, so no one could figure out the motive for this crime. In an eerie parallel, Diane had also been receiving roses prior to her disappearance, but in this case, they were able to track down the person who sent the flowers and rule them out as a suspect. However, according to Diane's best friend, Diane had told her she was secretly working undercover with the police, trying to help them solve the disappearance of a woman named Mary, but no official record was ever found to suggest that Diane was involved in the investigation. But here's a really strange detail. One of the detectives was quoted in the papers saying that he believed Diane's case and Mary's case might be connected, and he soon received a phone call from Mary's mother, who said she did not want the investigation into her daughter's case to be pursued any further. No one knows why she did this, but other than the fact that Mary and Diane had worked the same job, no tangible connection was ever found between their disappearances. Anyway, there wouldn't be any more major developments in Mary's case, but there was apparently a divided reaction within the police department about what they believe happened. Some of the investigators felt that Mary was abducted and eventually met with foul play, but others thought she might have staged her own disappearance, and the phone call from Mary's mother asking them to stop the investigation may have added more fuel to these rumors. And it's also worth noting that for reasons unknown, the police file for Mary's case also mysteriously went missing in the years after she vanished. But whatever the real truth, there has been no trace of Mary Shotwell Little in over 50 years. So I guess you could say, the trail went cold. So, yeah, remember my line from the intro about this being a rabbit bottomless pit? I can't think of too many missing persons cases which suit that phrase more than this one. There are just so many confusing developments here, and you could dream up a number of potential theories about what might have happened. This is considered to be the most famous missing persons case in the history of Atlanta, but I'm surprised it's not more well known outside the area. Like other famous missing persons cases, it sounds like this one has sparked some divisive reactions. Some of the investigators seem completely stumped by it, but others thought that Mary herself was responsible. However, here's a perfect example of how none of the theories make complete sense. In an article from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, a retired FBI agent who worked on the case expressed his belief that Mary was abducted in the Lenox Square parking lot by the same unidentified man with the brown crew cut who accosted the other woman. According to him, this man carjacked Mary, took her to another location to sexually assault her, returned to the parking lot to switch vehicles, and then drove Mary to North Carolina in his...
I think she was from Georgia. Give me 1 second. I can bring up an article. Atlanta, Georgia is where she went missing from. Mary Little vanished from the Lex Square Shopping Center parking lot in Atlanta, Georgia on the evening of October 14th, 1965. The 25-year-old newlywed bank secretary was last seen around 8 p.m. after dinner with a coworker. Her car was discovered the next day with blood stains, unusual clues, and 41 extra miles on the odometer. The parking lot in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay. Time of disappearance would have been Tuesday, October 14th, 1965, following a shopping trip and dinner. The car contained her groceries, blood stains on the steering wheel and door, and undergarments, including cut stockings, folded in the back seat of the car. The car was found covered in red dirt, suggesting it had been driven out of the city. Several weeks later, her credit card was used in Charlotte and another town in North Carolina, with reports of a distressed woman matching Mary's description in a company of 2 men.
Own vehicle, where he subsequently murdered her and buried her
Okay, hurry back. I hope you got to hear where and what she was from.
body at an unknown location. Well, that's a perfectly logical theory, but it doesn't account for a lot of unanswered questions, such as why this man would keep Mary alive for another day, drive her to a different state, and take her to 2 separate gas stations which were hundreds of miles apart. That seems like a lot of extra effort for a predator whose primary motive was sexual assault. So in order to examine this case, I'm going to start from the very beginning and look at all possible angles to see if I can come up with a concrete theory which makes, or at least almost makes, complete logical sense. Well, for any disappearance involving a newlywed, the first thing you have to do is look at the spouse. But
Okay, me and Ed couldn't come up with a conclusion. I think, in my honest opinion, we need the interviews with the coworkers, the people who had known Mary the best. That's just my opinion.
in this particular case, that seems like the least likely explanation. Due to his cold, seemingly uncaring behavior, Roy Little might fit the profile of your typical uncaring husband who wanted to get rid of his wife, but the guy had an alibi placing him over 60 miles outside of Atlanta when she went missing. Yes, I suppose it's not impossible that Roy could have hired someone to abduct and murder Mary, but there's just no motive for him to do this. The couple had only been married 6 weeks, they had no financial problems, Roy's financial gain from her death was very minimal, and even though Mary's friends didn't like Roy, she always gave off the impression that she was happy with her marriage. You can find lots of examples of murders and missing persons cases where the spouse came off looking cold, but then turned out to be completely innocent. Some people are just not good at showing their emotions, and it sounds like Roy Little was one of them. There just seem to be many more plausible scenarios other than him being responsible. But even though Mary gave off the impression that her marriage was fine, it sounds like she had some other issues going on in her life. There was someone who felt the need to frequently call Mary at work, and an anonymous suitor who sent roses to her apartment, and for all we know, this could have been the same person. It sounds like Roy had no idea that any of this was happening. This doesn't mean Mary was having an affair, but at the very least, it sounds like she was resisting someone's advances. One coworker overheard a phone conversation in which Mary exclaimed she was a married woman, but then said, "You can come over to my house anytime you like, but I can't come over there." I don't know if the coworker misheard certain sections of that conversation or took things out of context, but that's a pretty weird thing to say. If Mary was conducting an affair or trying to get rid of someone who had developed an obsession with her, she's not going to give him an open invitation to come over to her place. Mary's friends did claim that she seemed fearful of something, but it's worth noting that Mary's coworker, Isla Stack, said she appeared to be in good spirits and didn't express any issues at all during their dinner together right before she went missing. So now that we've examined the events leading up to Mary's disappearance, let's examine the circumstances of the disappearance itself. All of these things I've talked about might be a non-issue if Mary was the victim of a random abduction, which is certainly a possibility. Remember, we have a female witness who claims she was accosted by a strange man in the Lenox Square parking lot only minutes before Mary walked towards her car, so if this man was responsible, then Mary would have been selected at random. Like I said earlier, one of the FBI agents on the case seemed to think this man drove Mary to another location in her Mercury Comet, sexually assaulted her, and then drove Mary back to the Lenox Square parking lot. If Mary was raped inside her own vehicle, then this would account for why her undergarments were found there. It would also account for those extra 41 miles on the odometer. That seems like a perfectly plausible distance for the perpetrator to drive Mary out of the city into a remote area and then drive back to the parking lot. But what this theory doesn't account for is the sightings of Mary at the separate gas stations in North Carolina, which throw a real monkey wrench into this whole thing. I've stated multiple times on this podcast that eyewitness identification can often be wrong, and that it's very common for well-meaning people to mistake someone they see for a missing person. In this case, the woman the two gas station attendants saw seemed to make a concerted effort to hide her face from them, so it would be easy to mistake her for Mary. But this woman used Mary's gasoline card and signed her name Mrs. Roy H. Little, Jr. I guess it's not impossible that another woman could have stolen Mary's card and forged her signature, but considering that both witnesses reported that this woman had a noticeable head injury and seemed frightened of her male companion, I have to think she was Mary. And that's why it's hard to believe that Mary was the randomly selected victim of a sexual predator, because I just don't know why he would take her to another state and keep her alive so long. Of course, it's possible that whoever abducted Mary wanted to keep her in captivity for a while as his sex slave or something. It might seem brazen to take your captive to a gas station and make her use her own card to pay for fuel, but if the abductor lived a great distance away from Atlanta, then perhaps pulling over for gas was unavoidable. Maybe the reason he made such a long journey from North Carolina to abduct a woman in Atlanta was because he knew that abducting someone from the area in which he lived would attract too much attention. You might be wondering why Mary made no attempt to signal for help at the gas station, but given that she already had a serious head injury and had likely been assaulted by this point, her captor probably frightened her into staying silent. However, the most baffling part of this whole story is that this exact same situation happened at another gas station in Raleigh 12 hours later. If these sightings had occurred within a 3-hour window of each other, then that would be one thing, as Raleigh could have just been another stop on their trip to wherever they were going. But it does not take 12 hours to drive from Charlotte to Raleigh, and you should not have to refill your tank again after driving that distance, so the implication seemed to be that Mary and her captive traveled somewhere else before they went to Raleigh, but we have no idea where. And of course, there had to have been more than one person involved in this, especially since the gas station in Raleigh claimed he saw 2 men with Mary. I can only assume this second man might have been dealing with Mary's Mercury Comet at the time she was seen at the gas station in Charlotte. But I really don't know what to make of the situation with the Comet. I could believe the theory that Mary's abductor drove her somewhere to assault her and then returned to the Lenox Square parking lot to switch vehicles, but the problem is that nobody remembers seeing the Comet parked there until Gene Rackley discovered it at around noon the following day. Now, when Rackley called mall security earlier that morning and they told him they couldn't find the vehicle, I would ordinarily be inclined to think they simply just missed it. Yet we have a police officer who was pretty certain the Comet was not there when he patrolled the lot at 6 a.m., and other witnesses seem to concur that it wasn't there overnight. When a shopping center is closed, you have to think their parking lot is pretty much going to be empty. Missing the Comet in a crowded lot on a busy day is one thing, but an empty lot in the middle of the night? I'm not so sure it could be missed. It sounds like Mary and her male companion were spotted at the gas station in Charlotte sometime between midnight and 2:30 a.m., so if the Comet wasn't parked in the lot during that time, somebody else had to have it in their possession. The way Mary's undergarments were folded, and blood was smeared throughout the interior of the Comet, gave off the impression that the scene had been staged, though it would have been pretty brazen for someone to try that in a shopping center parking lot in broad daylight. And let's not forget that depending on whether you believe the Charlie Project profile or the news articles, either the Comet or the vehicle spotted at the gas station had a stolen license plate attached to it. I'm going to assume the info from the news articles is correct, because it makes a lot more sense to attach a stolen license plate to your vehicle when you're driving it into a public place with a captive woman, rather than attaching the plate to a vehicle you've just abandoned somewhere. But I'll reiterate, all this planning seems far too complicated to be the work of a sexual predator who selected Mary at random to be his victim. So what could have been the real reason to kidnap her? Well, we did have someone phone in an anonymous ransom demand to Mary's husband, Roy. Granted, whenever there's a high-profile missing persons case like this, it's fairly common for people who had nothing to do with the disappearance to send fake ransom demands, so that easily could have happened here. However, this one is a bit more unusual than most, since whoever was responsible went to the trouble of sending Roy to a specific location and leaving a blank piece of paper there. This may have been nothing more than a stupid prank, but since Roy sent an FBI agent in his place, this also could have been a ploy for the kidnapper to check if Roy had contacted the authorities, and when they found out he did, they decided to back off on their ransom demands. The ransom call was probably just a hoax, but I can't completely discount it because of that inmate's story about two men being paid $5,000 each to kidnap Mary before they murdered her in Mount Holly, North Carolina. The authorities did not put a lot of stock into this man's story at the time, but it has gained some traction in recent years, thanks largely to the website maryshotwelllittle.blogspot.com. The blog is run by an attorney named Susan Carpenter Scott, who decided to conduct a personal investigation into this case. She actually obtained records of the interview the FBI conducted with the inmate in 1966, and has posted a transcript of it on her blog with the names redacted. In 2014, the Charlotte Observer published an article about how a retired Atlanta police detective decided to look into this angle. He claimed that he saw a photo of a house in Mount Holly which matched the description of the house where Mary was supposedly murdered, but it has since been demolished. The reason Susan Carpenter Scott doesn't completely discount the inmate's story is because of the amount of specific detail he provided about what happened. If you want to read the full transcript of his interview, you can go to maryshotwelllittle.blogspot.com and judge for yourself whether his story sounds credible. Personally, my main issue
I was muted during all that. My son come up. He was mean. Very mean. Okay, just a second. Is there sound now? Oh, hold up. Hold up. Everything's glitching. Test, 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 test. Great, thanks. You have me sitting here going, I don't know what's going on. Something glitched. That's all I know. Something glitched somewhere. We always have a glitch. I'm on the other side. See now if I can get it to share. Because if not, I'll just play it through my phone and no, I want to share. Please let me share it. I actually want it over here. I want you over here. Thank you. Now I'm talking to myself. See? See, you make me nervous when you tell me you can't hear me. Y'all, I'm at 426 on subs. Gotta hit that 500 mark. Got to hit that 500 mark. Test, test, test.
I'm unplugging this mic. Oh, test, test, test. I still can't hear myself. Ah, there we go. Okay. Well, maybe.
Test, test, test.
All right. I am back. Woo! I don't know what's going on with my brand new camera. So, yay. My equipment decides to go. See you later. That's okay. I'm not the only one. Ikamal had the same problem yesterday, and he's got more subs than I do, so. As long as these bigger creators have the same problems that I have, I'm good. I know it's not just me. So we're going to listen to me and Ed real quick, and then we're going to go find those cases we talked about and find other cases, you know. You know how I work over here. So it's been kind of an interesting week. We've had tornadoes, lots and lots of tornadoes, lots and lots of damage. I had a doctor's appointment yesterday, got my meds, woke up this morning with a sty. I'm so annoyed.
That's about all it says. But I think that he was in the truck, I think, right?
Yeah.
Might have had a heart attack or swerved to miss something, or
That was my thought, was maybe a heart attack for it to be in the ravine like that.
right.
And I mean, I know they're making a big deal about his signs being with him, but if you're week
Wow.
since last Thursday, there was a tornado that hit Enid while we were on this live last Thursday night. And then all weekend they hit around us. Death had the alarm go off twice over at Sulphur, so
Wow.
it's been very, very eventful.
Enid.
And all that, just doesn't help with the stress and anxiety. So
That's right.
because it's like after Nicholas walked down the road yelling, "I'm going to die," because we were walking and the sirens were going off, I'll never forget it. So anytime the sirens go off, my anxiety just bolts to the north. See how much you can take today.
Sorry to
So
hear that.
that's how it's been here lately. And I live in the state that we get more tornadoes than we get anything.
Yeah. Right.
We barely get any snow.
Tornado Alley.
Mhm.
Too dang flat. That's the problem.
And that was my other thing. If he went missing over the weekend, and he wasn't reported missing until Tuesday, I don't know for sure what day he went missing on. But we had so many tornadoes out that way, he might have ran into some type of, you know what I mean? Something out there.
Yeah.
Weather-wise.
That's right.
I think it rained yesterday briefly. It sprinkled this afternoon, and we were back overcast today. So,
What's the temperature?
oh, it was 55, 56.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's been
It's a little cool for tornado weather.
well, it's cold for April, too.
Yeah.
64. It finally got to 64 today.
Wow. The thing is, when I think tornadoes, I think warm weather.
Well, and then tomorrow we're going to be 68. Saturday, 76. Sunday, 83.
Here we go. Here we go, D.
Just see how it goes back up then.
The tornadoes are sitting home saying, "Is it warm enough yet? Can we come outside yet? Can we go across Oklahoma yet? Is it warm enough?" Oh, yes. They're waiting. Those tornadoes are waiting.
Well, like I said, this year we've gotten lucky. We were going to the cellar, what was it? Tuesday? No. Yeah, Tuesday. And we got halfway. We left the house, got halfway up the road, which is just maybe a block around the corner to where the cellar's at. And
make fake windows. It'll look like windows. There'll be screens that'll look like the outside, and you can just change it to wherever you want. See? Well, you can tell I thought about this, D.
But the dream house, it's also going to have a pool on top of it.
The pool will be above. Okay. All right.
See, I got it all sketched out.
I know, me too. Hey, I got a file. I got a doc file. If I hit Powerball, I already got my stuff planned, D. I already got it all mapped out. You know, so I don't lose my mind. I got a step by step. Always got to be prepared.
Always good to be prepared. So, no news on Nancy's case.
Nope. Nothing. Zero. Zip. Nada. Not surprised.
Me either.
Not surprised at all.
I mean, I don't like it, but I'm not surprised with it at the same time, you know?
Right. This is the way these things go, though. You know, you and I both know this, D. These are the way these things go a lot of times. You know,
Wait for just a second. I'm going to let this play at normal speed, and I'll be right back. I'm going to go ask a question. I'm pretty sure I'll get a yes because it's going to get her something and him something. So I'll be right back. I was going to let that play, but at normal speed. I better get that done too. And remute myself. Yeah.
If a disappearance isn't solved within a week, it's probably going to last a month or a lot longer.
Well, I'm looking at one. Well, besides Molly and Colts, look at Summers. 3 years at this point, and nothing.
Yep. Yeah, very sad.
I mean, it's crazy. I don't get how people vanish out of their house. And I keep looking towards Tucson. I'm like, I don't understand how people vanish out of their house. But I guess I do. You know, Summer vanished from her house. Last report was seen going downstairs.
Well, that's where people mostly are. You have to look at it that way. It's like insurance companies know, where are you most likely to be in a car wreck? Near your house. Why? That's where you are most of the time in your car.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you leave your house, you're near your house. If you're coming back to your house, you're near your house. You know, kind of the same thing. Yeah, and that's the sad part. You know, and then you look at Sebastian's case. He went missing from his house. And I'm looking at all these. I'm like, you know, most of them have one thing in common. They all went missing from inside their house. Because they're there. You know? That's why one's a child, one's a senior citizen. But I've noticed a lot of them, whenever they do go missing, you're right, it's from their house. Right. So, most of them are walking off. Very few are abducted. Yeah. If you look at Rosa's case, she went missing from her car, supposedly. You know? Right. Which is Summer's aunt. Right. I mean, look at Jody's case. She went, I mean, granted, she was close to her house, but she didn't go missing from her apartment. She went missing in the parking lot, you know? So there's so many of them that you look at them and they're like, huh, that's interesting. That's where my brain. These cases do you want to, that list you sent me, all those Dorothys and everything, which one do you want to discuss first? Do you want to do that? Or what do you want to do? I put down some notes. Oh, okay. We can do that first. Which one do you want to go with? You pick. Okay. You're always mean to me. You're always mean to me. That's mean to you. You making you pick. Is that mean? I gotta switch over accounts. Give me 1 second.
so I can go pull up the list. I guess, what was most current one? 1993, Dorothy Dottie Booth.
All right. Yes. Right. This one actually has a Wikipedia page
Oh,
devoted to her killer, Kimberly McCarthy. If you type in Kimberly McCarthy in Wikipedia, you'll see her there. And she was actually eventually executed by the state of Texas for what she did. Yep. Yep. But
that's my obituary.
Dorothy Booth, she was a retired professor. And her next door neighbor was Kimberly McCarthy, and Kimberly, I guess, was into drugs and everything. Now, how it ends up that the college professor ends up living next to somebody who needs crack, I don't know. But that's what happened. That Kimberly decided she was going to rob Dorothy for money. She goes over there, forces her, or she was pretending like she wanted to borrow something. She got inside, and she ended up stabbing Dorothy Booth to death. This is a murder that was solved almost immediately. It was not craftily done, or it was not a big question as to who did it. And Kimberly McCarthy eventually was executed by lethal injection by the state of Texas. So this is certainly one, being that we're looking at these because we're comparing them, of course, to Nancy's disappearance.
Yes.
That Dorothy and Kimberly certainly knew each other. I'm not saying they hung out or had long conversations or anything, but Dorothy knew Kimberly. Kimberly knew Dorothy. This was certainly not a stranger on stranger crime. More importantly, this wasn't even a man who killed a woman. This is a woman killing another woman.
Yeah. Which was even more weirder for the date and time. You know what I mean?
It is unusual. You're right. Women killing women, not very common. Not very common at all. Yeah, what do you think about this? If being that you found this one, how did you find these, by the way? What were you doing?
Well, I decided I was going to take the ones I've already done. And I had already compared them to Nancy's, and I had already done the graph to that. And I was like, well, what if I run it on the Google AI? What will come up? And it generated this list of names.
Huh.
So I was like, well, we'll look. If they match, they match. If not, then no harm, no foul type deal. Hoping to find something that would make someone, it maybe not the killer come forward, but, someone who might know something. Whenever I come up with this idea, but that was
right.
And what can we learn from her going missing compared to what these cases have shown? Like I said, that one, she was murdered by another female.
Right. Very rare. Of course, that's almost certainly not what happened with Nancy Guthrie, but it does give us something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Kimberly McCarthy, you will find that on Wikipedia. Not much of a mystery at all. No mystery at all. In fact, it was never a mystery. It seems like as soon as somebody discovered that Dorothy was dead, seemingly knew immediately who did it. So,
yeah.
And she did it because she wanted to get money to buy crack cocaine. And, you don't hear about too many stories about college professors being murdered.
Well, another common thing then with her, she also, Nancy also worked at a college. in her early years.
Okay,
Mhm.
earlier years. All right, well, maybe there's something. That's interesting. Okay. So maybe with Nancy Guthrie, depending on how many years ago it was, she would be considered a college student or something. Maybe. Okay.
That's a good thought. I mean, I don't think I went down that road, that avenue, but
Mm-mm.
yeah, someone she might have made mad. You know,
It seems unlikely, but I think, like I continue to say, I think the ultimate thing is going to be something that's of a not very likely motive either.
well, what I find crazy is we're also finding out about the people who are renting the little. I think I've heard it called guest house. I thought it was a pool house whenever I first saw it. That people have been renting that out from her.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So, I automatically went, well, maybe that's the case.
Right. But on the other hand, if you thought it was that, wouldn't this have been solved by now?
Mm-hmm.
But certainly know everybody who rented there, and you'd think.
You would think, unless mom was keeping it away from the kids. But I don't know how you'd be able to do that whenever your daughter lives maybe 5 miles from you.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Your daughter and your son-in-law.
Right. Unlikely. Huh.
Now, the oldest son and Savannah didn't live close to her.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the only two, I think, that didn't live that close. And she only had 3, so that only leaves Annie.
Yeah.
And her husband, Tommaso, who works for the school.
Who have gotten a lot of attention.
Oh, yeah.
But 3 months later, still everybody was hot on that. I don't know how many people are really hot on that now.
Now, see, I never was really big Tomato, did it?
No. Tomato?
We call him Tomato.
Oh,
Tomato.
I didn't know you knew him that well, D. You even have a pet name for him. Wow. Okay. I don't know him that well.
Well, heck, you should hear. Me and Candace have pet names for everybody anymore. You're that long-headed, red-headed guy.
Who?
You.
What do you mean redhead? What are you talking about?
I thought your hair was brown, but Candace throws them down your head, but your hair's red, so.
I am certainly not a redhead. Now, I will tell you that back in the day, when, and of course we're going over 30 years ago, the last time I had any facial hair, it would come in red. And when I used to shave, it would be red, not now. If I were to grow a beard out, it would be mostly gray, and that's why I don't, because that'd make me look a lot older. Certainly, but my hair is not red.
I was like, red?
I
Where did you get red?
I do not have the mutant gene, D.
So I just let her go with it. That's her nickname for you. So, although I have always told everyone, and I've not hid this from anyone, that I am short.
I know. You're short like my biological mother, yeah.
And whenever she seen yesterday the paperwork from the doctor and it said 4'11", she goes, "Do what? I didn't realize you were that short."
Were you like crouching down when you got measured, D?
No. I was even trying to stand on my tippy toes, let me tell you.
All right. Okay. So, yes, Dorothy Booth, was it?
Yep.
Yeah, Professor Booth murdered all over money for drugs. Okay.
All right, the next one. How about Dorothy Donovan?
Right. And this is one that was unsolved for a long time.
Uh-huh.
And
they even thought her son might have done it.
Right. And they were thinking originally that her son did it, and her son certainly had something to do with it, but nothing criminal.
Nope. She had
And-
he had given the guy a ride, dropped him off on one street, and the guy wound up killing his mom on another.
How crazy is that?
After he stabbed him with the same screwdriver.
How crazy is that?
It's a little eerie.
You know, now that you know the full story, it's no wonder that they suspected the son. You know, given everything. But of course, the DNA didn't match, and they finally caught this other guy, and he did match the description of what of the that was given at the time. But so once again, we have to look at this and say, well, this is a stranger on stranger crime. It's completely random. This guy was just walking along, got a ride from Dorothy's son, and then got dropped off, and he just happened to kill the mother of the guy just gave him a ride.
Yeah.
I mean, just it's crazy.
Not looking for drugs.
But the guy was high. He admitted later, that he knew he got away with it, of course. But yeah, he said he was high and he was just looking for some place to sleep or something like that. Really didn't know what he was doing. Busted into Dorothy's house. She saw him. He panicked. He kills her. Takes off. Completely random. And in fact, we can surely say that when this guy went out that night, whether he was going to do drugs or not, his plan was not to kill anybody. But that's what ended up happening.
Yep.
And yeah, so when we think about Nancy Guthrie's, bringing it back to that, we get so caught up in the idea, well, that it had to be somebody that knew her and everything. And I think percentage-wise, it's still, I think that's still the best choice if you're putting money on anything.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to look too far to find murders that may be similar. A woman murdered in her house that is done by a stranger.
I mean, very, very, and it's oddly that, like I said, he found the guy who was trying to help him, his mother, to kill. It makes no sense.
No.
But, I know all of us swear up and down it's going to be someone who knows Nancy. It's going to be someone who knew her. Right there, it's one of those, it wasn't someone who knew her.
Nope. I mean, like I said, percentages, it's still most likely it was somebody connected to her who knew her, maybe through a third party or something like that. Not total strangers like what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
But this is what keeps the stranger on stranger crime, in our minds. There are just enough of them that you can't forget about it. Can't forget about it. And it very well could have been somebody else's house that night. That guy could have gone into somebody else's house, and instead of him killing somebody, he could have been killed. He could have been shot by the homeowner. Could have totally gone a totally different direction, but it didn't. So,
but that, it's one of those. And then I also, some of these cases I even kicked out, what if they didn't have rent? What if what if Nancy didn't have a ransom letter? Because a lot of us don't believe that Bitcoin thing is real.
Right.
So
I don't.
If there wasn't a ransom letter, how else would it be looked at? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the reason why a lot of these come up as murders.
Right.
And then we have the disappearance of Dorothy Jane Scott.
Yeah, these are all Dorothy's. Is that on purpose, Dee?
No. Nope.
Not on purpose.
Not on purpose.
Just the way it worked out.
Yeah. Because if you look, I think there was one that wasn't a Dorothy.
Right. Right. It's just weird. I guess Dorothy must have been a much more popular name back then. And who's naming their kid Dorothy these days? Nobody.
Because we also have
Dorothy was popular maybe around the time that The Wizard of Oz came out. Parents named their kids Dorothy.
Yeah.
But I'm even thinking of my time in high school in the 1980s. I don't remember any girls being named Dorothy.
I'm trying to think. Were there any that went to school with me? No, I think that was their Debs and Deborah's.
Now, of course, we had the skater Dorothy Hamill, but that's like a generation before me. That's like so Dorothy, all these Dorothys, weird. But this other Dorothy, but you want to talk about that Dorothy now?
We can.
All right.
With this Dorothy, she also has a Wikipedia page.
Right.
She was born April of 1948. I think they finally declared her dead May 28th of 1980.
Mm-hmm.
She went missing. I think later was found.
She was 4 years later, 1985.
Yeah.
Right. She was identified through dental records, and I think there was like jewelry or something. I think they kind of right away knew it was she.
But with this one, has the murderer been found? That would be
No.
my question.
Nope. The other two, the murderers were caught. And with Dorothy Jane Scott, he was murdered. It is believed that they could not determine a cause of death, very much like Tom Brown. And so if this was foul play, that person got away with it. Are you going to read it? Why don't you read about it, D, at least maybe a paragraph or something, just to show how weird it is, how unusual it is.
Her disappearance. She was from California. Let's take off the slow mode. After driving two coworkers to a hospital, Scott went to fetch the car to take it to them to pick them back up. Okay, to pick them back up at the hospital. But in between, she went missing somewhere. There was, however, as her car, they thought they seen the car. As it approached them, it sped away.
Right.
Neither could see who the driver was, with the headlights had on the high beams. The coworker reported Scott missing a couple of hours later after not hearing from her. In preceding months, Scott had been receiving anonymous phone calls from a man who had reported been stalking her and had left threatening messages. In January 1980, a man called Orange County Register, a local newspaper, that he had reported Scott's disappearance and claimed that he had killed Scott. Police believe the caller was Scott's killer. From 1980 to 1984, Scott's mother, who received phone calls from a man who claimed to have Scott or to have killed her. None of the callers could be recorded, however, because the caller would not stay on the line long enough. In August 1984, partial human remains were found and later identified as Scott's. No arrests have been made.
Right. And what makes this, this her a disappearance? Unfortunately, I don't know, or fortunately, unfortunately, it's not, because this would certainly be one that I would absolutely want to have on Unfound. If she would been, she went missing, her car was burned, as it says, but she was never found. This would be one that I would be like, wow, we really need to get into this one, because she was at the hospital for a reason that nobody could have predicted. It didn't even have anything to do with her.
It was one of the coworkers.
It had to do with a coworker who had been bitten by a spider. And then I think it was a guy, and she and another coworker, female, took this guy to the hospital. And I think maybe they stopped at her house on the way, and then they took him to the hospital. And he went and got treatment. It was like a black widow bite or something, very dangerous. And she's waiting with her friend while this guy gets treatment, and then he's done, and the other woman and the guy, are waiting to get the drugs there, the prescriptions or what, antibiotics or whatever he has to take. And she says, I'll go get the car so he doesn't have to walk very far. And it's when she went out to her car that this happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is when they went outside. She didn't show back up, so they go outside. And right about that time, they see her car zooming out of there, but because of the headlights, they couldn't, and it was at night, they couldn't see who was driving. So somebody followed, because they were like, it's some work thing. Somebody followed them from the work to her house to the hospital, and there's no way this stalker could have known that she would be going back out to her car by herself. There's no way a person could have known that.
Well, unless the stalker had been actually following her.
Yeah. But how long had this been going on then? And how would she not notice that?
Give me a minute.
Yeah. Put you on mute. We'll wait till the train passes.
I guess he ain't going to be annoying tonight.
Forgot it's Thursday.
Obviously.
He'll be like several miles down the track, and he'll be like, dang!
I forgot to blow the horn.
The train in reverse, come back up blowing the horn or something.
God, flip this thing around.
Damn, I didn't ruin the show tonight. Dang. So, I mean, this is really, these are the kinds of situations that really get my attention. That what is going on here when we start talking about stalkers and things? Did this person really, was this stalker really so good? Because you had to think that she knew that she was being stalked. She was getting these calls and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But then she still chooses to leave the hospital
by herself.
Obviously, thinking there's no way somebody could have followed me from work to home to here. I would have noticed it. But it seems that's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking about that, Dee? What you think about stalkers and things? I mean, is there any other way to explain it other than that?
No. But people are automatically going to blame it on a male. Who's to say the stalker's male?
Could be a female. Could be. Even so, male or female, that is some patience, and the perfect conditions needed to be set up for the attack to happen. And there's no way that the stalker could have known that she was going to go out by herself. Now, there is a story out there that I read that the stalker afterwards, the guy who was calling in and claiming to have killed her, was stating that she had called him, and then stating that something about how he loved her and that'll teach her, something like that. Somebody who was obsessed with her. Well, how many people could have been obsessed with her?
Good question.
Once again, this seems like something that would have been exposed very quickly. But it wasn't. And here we are 46 years later, still wondering what happened and who did this. And then not to mention somebody, we have to think about it this way. If somebody attacked her at this hospital, what happened to that person's car? Or was there more than one person? How did that person get to the hospital, attack her, take her car, kill her, dump her, burn the car, and then get back to wherever that person's car was parked? It's all very complicated, Dee. Don't you think?
Yes, I do. And to know that she didn't have a steady boyfriend, according to her father. Now they do say that on the windshield of the car, where was that?
Yeah.
She went out and there was a red dead, or a signal dead red rose.
Right.
Oh, on a windshield. That was one of them. The dead red rose.
Right.
So
That's right.
she knew she had a stalker, obviously.
But she's still going out to her car by herself.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those, I have to admit, Dee, this is one of those things where I wonder if there was really a stalker in the first place.
Well,
Are we sure that she didn't cause her own disappearance?
maybe. The one thing that I'm reading here, though, is it was a construction worker who discovered her, but they also found dog remains as well.
That's right.
Beside her.
That's right.
So,
And
I'd want to
we have to note the hospital where her car was found burned and where she were found, three separate locations, not close to each other. Not close to each other at all. Just, this, like I said, Dee, these, I like these ones because they really challenge me. They really, really challenge me on trying to come to the best idea.
Would you like to know another eerie thing?
Tell me another eerie thing, Dee.
According to her mother, the watch had been stopped at 12:30 a.m. on May 29th,
Right.
about an hour after the vehicle was seen leaving the hospital.
Right. Right. So if we're to believe, it doesn't have to be the time of death. I mean, what would be so violent that it would stop a watch? This seems to me to be like one of those things that you pull from like Columbo or something.
Question: where was she found compared to where her car was found?
No, well, they weren't close to each other. I forget. That was off. The car was found in like an urban area, whereas she was found off a Santa Ana Canyon Road or something, like out in the boonies somewhere. And in fact, they said that there had been a fire that went through in 1982, and the remains showed signs of being burned. So the remains were there when the fire went through in 1982. But, you know, the thing is, though, regarding her watch, is this a watch that would have the date on it too? It could, I mean, if it says 12:30, it could be 12:30 the next day or the day after that, depending on how long the watch would run. Was it a wind-up watch? Was it a battery watch? Of course, in 1980, both are possible.
Yeah.
So unless the watch actually had a date thing that worked on it as well, that could have been 12:30 on any day. You know, it would keep running even though she was dead. That's what I'm saying.
You are right.
So that is a little unclear to me. I realize, and I read the same thing you did, Dee, that it seems like a good piece of information, but it also sounds maybe a little too tricky, a little too, like I said, Columbo, Murder, She Wrote, or something like that.
And she is also younger than Nancy by a lot.
Oh yeah, a lot. By a lot. By a lot.
By a whole lot.
I'd really, really want to know a lot more about her.
Uh-huh.
I would really want to know how she was reacting to these. What was she actually saying? I read somewhere maybe she was taking a karate class or something. Okay.
Yeah. She took some type of fighting class.
Yeah. And of course, this is still unsolved. I mean, how many guys and women could have been obsessed with her? They could have known, was this a coworker? Is this somebody, a coworker who was there, saw her leave, got in his or her car, followed to her house, or maybe even knew that they were headed to the hospital and was waiting there for them? But still, this person can never predict that she would go out by herself. But like I said, that in one of the messages after, the caller was like, yeah, she called me from the hospital. Whereas the friend who was with her said, no, she was with me the whole time. Until she went out to her car, she never made any phone calls.
Well, I know I watched one podcast said that she had stopped by the bathroom on her way out to the car. But I mean, that's not long enough stop to make a phone call. And they didn't have cell phones.
I mean, even if she did, what did this person live right down the street? What did this person do? I mean, you call, hey, meet me up my car. And, it's not like they were waiting that long. The person would have had to have been right down the street.
Mm-hmm. And
I don't know. That is a real head scratcher. That's a tough one. If this were a disappearance, I would really be stuck between actually believing that she was actually murdered by somebody, and maybe she just took off on her own. And all these calls and things. I mean, what's also, being that you read it as well, did you get the idea, even though they couldn't trace the calls, did you get the idea that they have a recording of the guy's voice?
No, I did not get that idea. Like I said, all it's dated was they could not trace the call.
But I thought it did say that they had recorded it or something. Was that not part of the record?
Messages. Let me look. Yeah, it doesn't stay in the Wikipedia one at all.
It doesn't say anything about recording.
Nope, it just says
Very surprised.
the call could not be traced, however, because the caller would not stay on the phone long enough.
See, I always thought when they did those things, they just automatically recorded them too. I realize we're talking about 1980, but of course the technology certainly existed to record phone calls. So they have the person, I'm thinking they have the guy's voice, and once again, it's still unsolved. So, if they investigated this, surely they went to her place of work. Of course, they would know what all the other employees sound like. Maybe some of her friends might be able to give them the
Hey T, good night, sweetie.
names of ex-boyfriends or something, and they would be able to test
Appreciate you being here.
test their names and everything. And it's, I think, unless they were really, really inept at what they were doing. Like I said, this is one of those that gives you idea that the answer is right there, but the answer has never been gotten. And that's when I start wondering, was this all really, really, really great?
Well, I was reading over this because the mysterious phone calls, I found the section on it. About a week after Scott's disappearance, her parents, Jacob and Val, we're just going to call her V, received a phone call from an unknown man stating, "I've got her," and hung up. The same male caller almost called every Wednesday afternoon and said either that he had Scott or he had killed Scott. The calls were usually brief and usually occurred when V was at home alone. In April of 1984, the man called during the evening. Jacob answered and the calls stopped. Scott's remains were found August 1984 and the family started receiving calls again. Police installed a voice recorder. So yes, I guess they were at Scott's residence. They were not able to trace the call, however, because the man, just a second.
See, he found out. He's coming back. He's coming back, D.
As soon as I thought it was safe.
Like I told you, he made a big U-turn.
He had to.
Went onto an alternate track, came back around and said, "Hey, wait a minute. I missed the show tonight. I got to interrupt it."
Okay, yes, they were recorded. However, because the man never stayed on the line long enough, it was not possible to trace it. A possible motive in Scott's murder surfaced on June 12, 1980, when an unidentified caller called the front desk at Orange County Registry, which is the newspaper, which had ran a story that day about the case. The main editor told the police that the caller has said, "I killed her. I killed Dorothy Scott," said she was the love. "I caught her cheating with another man. She denied having someone else. I killed her." The editor also said the caller knew Boston. That's not his name, but that's what we're going to call him. Boston had suffered a spider bite the night of May 28th and knew Scott had changed her changed from a black scarf to a red one prior to arriving to the hospital. Neither of these details have ever been published in a registry article. The caller also claims Scott phoned him from the hospital that night, had a dispute that claiming they had a dispute, he claims, saying she had been with Scott the entire time and she had not made a phone call. Interviewers believe the anonymous caller is the person who is responsible for Scott's death.
Huh.
So yeah, they did record it, and how do you know the guy had a spider bite if it wasn't reported?
There's only a few people who could have known that. Her coworkers.
Mm-hmm.
Only people who were there could have known that. Yet still unsolved. Hard to understand.
I'll be right back. I gotta go do something real quick.
All right, D. We'll come back and we'll finish this up. It all seems very complicated for just a straight out murder.
Mm-hmm.
Just does. If we really want to think this is a murder, it's really complicated. Whereas it's easier to understand that she set this all up somewhat. But, if she was getting calls, this reminds me so much of the disappearance I've been working on behind the scenes with Cindy Anderson from Toledo, Ohio, who also went missing. Her remains have not been found. It's still a disappearance. But she was getting calls before she went missing, but only at the law firm where she worked. And no calls ever to where she was living at home still with her family. And the lawyers who were working with her seemingly never heard any of these calls, but she was telling people about them. It's tough. And, she went missing from the law firm. Her car was still there. The office was locked. She was gone. Hard to all put together.
See, to
Difficult.
me, that one would make you think that it was someone who had came into the law firm prior or something that had been
And
locked.
that is my thinking. That's my thinking. Certainly, but unfortunately, I think too many people have gotten off on these tangents about some of these clients that the lawyers have or had that were criminals. Well, lawyers deal with a lot of criminals. That's who their clients are. But and the thing is, she was paranoid. She had the front door locked. She would be in there morning taking phone calls, getting everything ready for the lawyers before they got there. But she was paranoid about this, was keeping the door locked. And then when the lawyers finally got there, as they usually did around noon, her car was there. She was gone. Never seen again.
Yeah, that one sounds like very close to this one. But with this one, I mean, like I said, only two people that knew she was there. They would have to have a third person and drive a car to get them all away with, besides hers. Give me a second, guys. Oh. I'm still here, y'all. I'm looking. We'll go see what Crime Clues is about. Let's go see those this lady's about. See what she says on the case. See if she has any different ideas than me. Ed. It's not working. We'll give them a subscribe.
Had become a horrible routine. A twist.
Okay.
Ritual that began soon. Dorothy Scott vanished in 1980.
Oh, that's awful.
Awful. Today, the case I have for you involves a devoted single mother, a mysterious stalker, and phone calls that will send chills down your spine. It's a story that starts in sunny Anaheim, in the shadow of Disneyland's happy facade, but ends in a haunting mystery. Who was the man obsessively calling and terrorizing Dorothy Jane Scott? Why did he torment her family for years and yet somehow was never caught? And how did an ordinary night of helping a friend out turn into Dorothy's last night? This is the case of Dorothy Jane Scott. Dorothy was a 32-year-old single mother living in Stanton, California, which is a small Orange County community of about 20,000 people at the time. She had a 4-year-old son named Sean, who she absolutely adored. In fact, her entire life revolved around caring for her little boy. Friends described Dorothy as a quiet, kind homebody, which not a bad thing.
It's my favorite kind of.
I know, me too. I can relate.
Yes, same.
She was a devout Christian who didn't drink, she didn't party, and she preferred nights at church events or with family over going out. She worked as a back office secretary and bookkeeper for 2 shops in Anaheim, a head shop and a psychedelic goods store. And the psychedelic goods store was one that her father had previously owned, so family business. By all accounts, Dorothy was responsible. She was well-liked in the community. She lived with her aunt about 20 minutes from her parents' house, and her parents often babysat Sean while he worked. She's someone that you would expect to be at the center of a story like this, and that's what makes what happened to her all the more unsettling. In late 1979 and in early 1980, Dorothy's ordinary life took a frightening turn. She began receiving disturbing phone calls both at work and at home. The caller was an unidentified man who seemed to be watching her every move. Sometimes he would profess his undying love for Dorothy. Other times his tone was vicious and he would threaten to kill her. Terrifying.
Yeah, that's scary.
He demonstrated that he knew intimate details of Dorothy's life. Like he would know what she had worn that day, where she had been, even trivial things like when she left for work or how she spent her afternoons. And the stalker wasn't guessing, he was following her.
It's awful.
Yeah. One day, the caller told Dorothy that he had something for her and instructed her to go outside. Nervously, she did. She went out to her car and found a single dead rose on the hood. Romantic? No. In another call, his tone was flat out menacing. He told Dorothy, "When I get you alone, I will cut you up into bits so no one will ever find you." Can you imagine hearing that from this anonymous voice that seems to know exactly where you are at all times?
That's so scary.
Straight out of a horror movie.
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, nowadays I wouldn't answer calls that I don't know, but change your number. I don't know. Instead of taking calls from this guy.
It's awful.
Did she, I'm sure you're going to tell me, but did she get the police involved and try and track his number?
That's a great question. This is awful, but in 1980, stalking wasn't recognized as a crime. There were no stalking laws yet. And those actually wouldn't come until 1990, which was prompted by other horrible cases similar to this one. So there's nothing that she could report that they would do anything about.
Oh, that's terrible.
Right.
I'm glad that we've changed that now.
Mm-hmm.
Did she know who it was, or did she have any idea? Had she ever seen him following her or anything like that?
Dorothy wasn't sure. She told her mother the voice sounded familiar, like it might be someone she knew, but she couldn't figure out exactly who. It was someone she felt like just on the edge of her memory. And she even said to her parents, I know his voice. I just can't place it, which would be so frustrating and so scary.
Yeah.
Suspecting you might know your stalker, but you can't identify them.
You can't place who it is.
Dorothy felt pretty alone in dealing with this, and she did what she could. She took self-defense classes, signing up for karate lessons in May of 1980. She did consider buying a handgun, but ultimately decided against it because she was worried about her son's safety. He was so little, she didn't have a gun safe. So instead of the gun, she carried a knife in her purse and worked on being vigilant about knowing her surroundings. Dorothy did change her phone number, like you mentioned, and she did move houses multiple times within a few months, trying to get away from the stalker. But every time, he always managed to find her new number, and he kept calling. It's like he was everywhere and nowhere. Dorothy, like I said, confided in her parents, and this was from the beginning. She told her mother, Vera, about the calls when they started, and even sometimes specific ones. One in particular, the one we talked about where he was threatening to cut her up into pieces, that one really shook Dorothy up. And Vera said that, I'm like, of course, that's terrifying. Vera said that Dorothy was horribly upset by that specific call. And Dorothy was taking these threats seriously. She wasn't blowing it off as a prank. I don't know how frequently they came in, but enough to know this isn't just a one-off call from someone playing a prank on whoever answered, right?
So you don't know how many calls she received?
I don't know the exact number. And it was like to multiple places. So to her work, both of them, wherever she was living, her parents' house, even though she wasn't living there at the time. Yeah.
Her new numbers. Wild.
Yep. Dorothy was taking the threat seriously, and things got so bad she really did fear for her life, which has to be a traumatic way to live. Dorothy started arranging for her coworkers to walk her to her car after work. She tried to change up her routine. She was looking over her shoulder constantly. This unknown caller really had turned Dorothy's life into a nightmare, and she hadn't even come face to face with him that she knew of. Now, let's move to the night that Dorothy disappeared. It was May 28th, 1980. It was a Wednesday night. Dorothy had gone to an evening employee meeting at work in Anaheim. Despite everything going on, she was still the kind of person who would help anyone in need, and that night proved it. One of her coworkers, a man named Conrad, wasn't feeling well during their meeting. He had a nasty red spider bite on his arm, which turned out to be a black widow bite. Scary. And he wasn't looking very good. He looked like he was sick and needed medical help. Dorothy was concerned and insisted on driving Conrad to the hospital. Another female coworker, a woman named Pam, offered to come along to help. This tells you a lot about Dorothy. It's 9 p.m., 10 p.m. She's a single mother. She's probably been working all day, and she didn't hesitate for a second to assist a coworker with a medical emergency. So Dorothy, Pam, and Conrad left the meeting and headed to the UI Medical Center in Orange, which was about 20 minutes away. They took Dorothy's white 1973 Toyota station wagon. On the way, Dorothy made a quick stop at her parents' house. She wanted to check in on Sean. She didn't know how long it would take to go to the hospital and have him get what he needed and everything that goes along with that. And Sean was staying with her mom and dad that night. She let her folks know what was happening so they wouldn't worry when she was home really late. She also grabbed a quick change of clothes. Specifically, she changed her scarf from a red one that she'd worn to the work meeting to a warmer black scarf for the cooler night ahead. This detail might seem trivial, but it becomes important later on. By the time they got Conrad to the hospital, it was between 10:30 and 11 p.m. Dorothy and Pam stayed in the waiting room together while Conrad was treated. According to Pam, Dorothy never left her side the entire time they were waiting. They even went to the restroom together at one point. And this is important because it means that Dorothy likely didn't slip away to meet anyone or make any phone calls while they were at the hospital. She was with Pam the entire time. Conrad was treated for the spider bite and given a prescription. By the time he was discharged, it was past midnight. So now technically we're in the early morning hours of May 29th, 1980. Dorothy told Pam and Conrad she'd go get her car from the parking lot and pull it up to the ER entrance. So Conrad, who still was feeling pretty weak, wouldn't have to walk all the way out to get the car. Pam later said Dorothy also mentioned she needed to use the restroom before heading to the car. So they agreed that Pam would wait with Conrad at the pharmacy inside to get his prescription, and Dorothy would meet them with her car at the exit. Pam and Conrad got the medication and then walked out of the hospital's front entrance, expecting to see Dorothy's Toyota wagon either waiting or about to pull up.
Yeah.
But Dorothy wasn't there. After a few minutes of looking around the pickup area, they couldn't see her. They couldn't see any sign of a car coming their direction. They decided to head out to the parking lot to try to find her car. They were probably thinking maybe it wouldn't start, or I don't know, something. Maybe the bathroom took longer and she was waiting. As they walked through the lot under the streetlights, they suddenly saw Dorothy's car, or at least they saw a white station wagon that looked just like hers, speeding towards them. For a moment, they waved and tried to flag her down, thinking maybe she isn't seeing them.
Yeah. Maybe she's thinking, oh, I took a long time. I need to hurry and get up there.
Exactly. The car's headlights were on full beam, like, the brights were on, blinding them, and they couldn't see who was driving. The car was going so fast, they started to wonder if maybe something happened with Sean and Dorothy was speeding out of there to go help him. They didn't, you're trying to think of anything that could explain the situation that is not normal away.
Yeah.
Pam later said that because of the glare, she couldn't make out a figure at all behind the wheel. She's assuming it's Dorothy, but she didn't see Dorothy.
Yeah.
The car flew past them so fast, it ran the stop sign at parking lot exit and peeled out of the hospital grounds. This car speeding out of the parking lot was totally out of character for Dorothy. Pam and Conrad are obviously confused. They are trying to come up with anything that could explain it, like an emergency with Dorothy's son that we mentioned. Maybe she had somehow got an urgent call, but there aren't cell phones. So,
and it's like midnight.
Yeah, 1 a.m. now. That would be, you would think her parents would just take him to the hospital if he needed something. Probably the same one they were at, too. Pam and Conrad couldn't come up with a really good explanation or anything that made sense. So they're kind of just waiting for her because they don't have another way to get home. She was their ride. I would guess they might know her home phone number, but if they don't know exactly where she went, they probably don't really want to call her parents' house at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. if she just went to get something really fast and is coming right back to pick them up. However, when she didn't return, they waited for 1 to 2 hours and she didn't come back, so they knew something was wrong. Around 4 a.m., Pam did call Dorothy's parents, hoping that maybe Dorothy had indeed rushed home to check on Sean or handle something else, but Dorothy's parents hadn't seen her. And in fact, they said they didn't even know she had gone to the hospital that night until Pam called. They were watching her son, so I'm not sure if she didn't make it clear that that's where she was going after she changed and why she wouldn't be home.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe they thought just to an urgent care closer by. I'm not sure. But panic immediately set in, especially when they know everything that's been going on with the calls and how scared she's been. By 4:30 a.m., with no sign of Dorothy, hospital security and the police were
This live's about over. I'm falling asleep and I don't know why. Could be because it's nice and warm and the birds. But and it's almost dinner time for most. Y'all have a great night. We will catch the rest of this tomorrow. Bye for now.